You have a printing press, a radio, and a TV studio in your smartphone right now.
Right now.
So there is zero barrier to entry for anybody to start doing this. The other thing too is social media is 100% free. Now there are paid levels for just about everything.
How important is getting your business known out there? I mean, you hear all this talk about branding and getting yourself just out and rising above all the noise and all the stuff that's out there. But how many people really can do that for you? How many people really know how to do that? Well, there's this gentleman here. His name is D.P. Knudten, and I got his name right, I think, by saying that.
You absolutely did.
I'm glad to hear that. And I'm a radio guy too, so I pride myself on pronouncing names correctly. So DP, you're a brander, and according to my notes, you've worked with huge brands like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, I mean, things like that. Georgia Pacific, that's a paper company, I think, right?
Yeah, paper forest products is what they would call it.
Okay, well, they're based in my hometown, or they have a division in my hometown up in Plattsburgh, New York. So that's where I'm from, and things like that. So, how did you get started in the branding arena, and how does that work for you?
Well, it's kind of a really long story, and I want to spare your listeners a lot of it, but I will say this, that I came into advertising and marketing communications via the infection vectors of the TV show Bewitched and a little bit of Dick Van Dyke Show. And what I mean by that is, if you remember, Dick Van Dyke played a comedy writer on the Alan Brady Show in his Dick Van Dyke sitcom, right?
Right.
The other one, Bewitched, Darren Stevens, who was the husband of Samantha, the witch of that program, he was an ad man. You know, he was Don Draper before Don Draper was Don Draper, literally.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I would watch this, and I remember one specific episode of Bewitched that kind of caught my attention. There was a woman who had a product which was a lipstick, and her name was the very exotic Madame Suzatska or something like that.
Right.
And as a little kid, I'm going, Suzatska, whoa, that's a cool word. And even then I didn't know I was a word guy, but evidently I was. And I remember thinking, oh, that's cool. And then, you know, during the story of the half-hour sitcom, Darren had to come up with some ads for this Madame Suzatska's lipstick. And I'm like, people do that? People have a job where they think of the ideas, they write the words, and then these advertisements don't magically appear. People actually make them? That'd be a cool job.
So that's the inspiration.
Yeah, I remember thinking that as a kid. And then fast forward into past my nebulous 20s, where I was doing everything from improv comedy to on-camera work and voiceover and everything like that. I was once in the box, as they say, for voiceover people, doing some ads that had 75 seconds of copy for a 60-second radio spot. And Chris, I'm sure you're familiar with that syndrome.
Yes, I am.
Where you've got way too much stuff and not enough time. And we're on, I don't know, take 50 something. And I'm looking at that script going, I can write better than this.
Yeah.
And that planted the seed again. So those two seeds kind of conjoined. And long story short, I became an advertising copywriter and was able to work at McCann Erickson in Atlanta, Georgia on that brand you mentioned before, Coca-Cola. And that's literally my graduate school of branding. I like to think of my time at McCann Erickson as that's when I learned what branding was, because I was literally writing premium ad copy for the manufacturer of sweet, brown, bubbly water. And that's what their product is, sweet, brown, bubbly water. No. Their product is not that. They are a brand, and they command a premium place in the marketplace. And that's when I learned, if you're not a brand, you're in danger of being a commodity. And commodities are bought for the lowest possible price.
Right.
But brands command a premium, as anyone who buys Apple computers knows.
Yes.
You pay twice as much for what a Dell could go for, but they have no problem getting my dollars because of who they are, what they do, and how they do it. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm a big brand champion.
Wow. You just described everything. Half the next questions I was going to ask, all in that. That's amazing. I love the story. I was going to ask you what your definition of a brand is. I guess I still could. In the most basic sense. I mean, you just described it really kind of in the big sense, but in the basic sense, what would be your definition of a brand?
A brand is I like to call it a brand handle or brandle. You know, okay, here's a little thought experiment for you. Picture everything that you are as a human being or your business is as an entity.
Right.
And you can tell me all the specifications, all the background, all your certifications, everything about you. Put all those things in this suitcase.
Mm-hmm.
If that suitcase doesn't have a handle on it so I can easily pass you on to someone else, you're giving me too much information. It's like branding is the stuff that on a first date gets you a second date. And then you build a relationship from it. Because again, if I went on a date with a woman and said, yeah, I live in my basement, I play Xbox 18 hours a day, and my favorite food is Cheetos, that would be too much information. That would keep me from getting that second date.
Oh, you'd never.
Now, I don't. Yeah, exactly. And the whole thing is, I don't believe in faking it at all. I believe in telling the truth about who you are, what you do, and how you do it, which is why I'm such a big proponent of what I call nonfiction branding.
Tell me about that was my next thing. What exactly is that's something you're famous for, and I think you have a book. Is the book out now? Am I mistaken?
Yeah, it is. It's available on Amazon.com. It's called Nonfiction Brand. Discover, craft, and communicate the completely true, completely you brand you already are.
Okay, the idea of nonfiction branding or brand.
Right.
You started on that, but go into that a bit. What is nonfiction branding?
Well, okay, so let me tell you a true story again, and this happened again at McCann Erickson. Okay. I was working on another client's work, not Coca-Cola, and I got a creative brief, which is typically a 3 sheets of paper that tell you what you should be writing about. Like, hey, it's a newspaper ad, it's 8.5 by 11. Mm-hmm. Make sure you mention that it's a July 4th special, supplies are limited, only 2 per customer, that type of stuff.
Right.
I need those things. Those are called copy points. I will then take those copy points and then frost them with concept and idea, stuff that is eye-catching and all that stuff, but I still need the basic stuff, which is it's a 4th of July special, supplies are limited. These are things I need. Mm-hmm. Well, I get the creative brief, and the copy points section is blank except for the words, write some stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean, write some stuff? Tell me at least thematically what you want me to write about. What's the truth of what I should be trying to say about this product or service? And so I went into the account director's office and I said, what is this guy, mister? Come on, this is, and then I said these words, I am not a fiction writer. And that doesn't mean I couldn't write bad fiction that nobody wants to read. I guarantee I could do that. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to advertising, I'm not writing fiction. I'm taking the truth and I may polish it to a high sheen, but it's still the truth. I need to know what that truth is. And so we got the ad done and no harm, no foul. But that idea sat with me in my head for the next 15 years as I thought about it and went, I'm not a fiction writer. I'm a nonfiction writer. I'm a nonfiction brander because I believe in nonfiction brands. Mm-hmm. And, it almost begs the question, if there are nonfiction brands, you're implying that there are fictional brands.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you'd be absolutely right. I mean, and we're surrounded by them. For example, you know that Instagram influencer out there who's a personal brand, the one who's living their best life, doing heart-shaped hand gestures as they take photos on the beach in Belize as the sun sets behind them and the wind is blowing in their hair and all this stuff.
Yeah.
They're living their best fake life. They're literally fronting a brand that doesn't exist. They are trying to convince you that their life is better than yours so that they can attract money from swimsuit companies or cosmetics companies or whatever. They are literally lying to your face unless they're not. For example, one of my favorite influencers on YouTube is a couple of Australians who are sailing around the world on a regular basis on a ship called La Vagabond. And over their, I think they've been doing this now 6 years or something.
Right.
You've watched them go from young couple to now they've got a couple of kids and they're building a new boat in Vietnam. And you get to know these people and you can tell they are absolutely true to who they are, what they do, and how they do it.
That's awesome.
And that's the key. Nonfiction brands, whether they're products, services, or individuals, are true to who they are, what they do, and how they do it.
And there's a lot of that fiction stuff out there. I mean, you see so much of that. Oh my
God. Let me no, go ahead, Chris. I
was just going to say, those are the ones that have, say they have, millions of followers, and how many of them are really doing anything for them, or,
Well, let me give you and your listeners somebody to think about. Do you know Gary V?
Of course. Gary Vaynerchuk. I have his books and I follow him and all that stuff. Yeah.
I think Gary V is 100% true to who he is, what he does, and how he does it.
Agreed.
I've followed him since 2006 when he did his very first Wine Library TV video on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about that. I mean, and literally, you can go back. It's still up there. You can see the one, I think it was May 16th of 2006, or maybe the 17th of 2006 that he put it up there. And you look at the video quality and it's terrible. I like to snidely say that he looks like he was captured by the Bordeaux Liberation Front, and it's a proof of life video. But he's up there and he's passionate about wine, and you can tell he is 100% true to who he is.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the challenge there is he's surrounded by 20-year-old men who want to be Gary V.
Of course.
They want to be on stage dropping F-bombs like Gary V. They want to be able to make these big, broad pronouncements just like Gary V, even though they have none of Gary V's experience and expertise.
Right.
They're trying to copy what I like to think of the frosting. You've heard me use the word frosting twice now. The frosting without being the cake.
No cake. Yeah,
that's right.
They just want the look without the
exactly. They're posers. They're wannabes. They're the guys.
I see somebody else doing what Gary V does, unless they have some kind of background and expertise, I'm not going to pay attention to them, really.
Exactly, because you can smell the fiction brand that they are instead of cherish the nonfiction brand they are not being.
Wow.
That's the big difference, because here's the other thing too. A brand is not ideally a Swiss Army knife that is a crappy knife, a crappy corkscrew, and an unsanitary toothpick. A brand is a scalpel. It is very purpose-built for a specific segment of the audience. Now, for example, you might look at a car like a Toyota Prius. It's not for everybody. It's certainly not for the F-150 guy who likes rolling coal down the street, as all that stuff.
Yeah.
Guess what? The Prius is not meant for them.
No, it's
Instead, they are focused to serve the people who appreciate who they are, what they do, and how they do it.
DP, these are great stories. I love what the quality that you're and the expertise that you're bringing to the idea of branding, and the nonfiction brand is something I'm going to pick up and read myself for sure.
Absolutely.
Haven't had a chance to do that yet. Now, according to my notes, you're involved a little bit in helping brands with social media. Am I correct in that?
Well, here's the thing. A big part of what I do is, you've heard me use the term personal branding a lot. And
personal branding, yeah.
I encourage people, no matter their age, because between you and me, I'm very, very close to your age, Chris, as my whiskers will attest. And consequently, I was avoiding social media because it's not my jam. However, when I heard, and again, going back to Gary Vaynerchuk, when I heard Gary Vaynerchuk say, I don't care if you're 20, you're 50, or you're 70, this is something you can do. And if you don't do it, you're leaving opportunity on the table.
You sound like Gary V. I mean, that's exactly what he says.
Exactly. And that's when he said that, it hit me upside the head.
Oh,
like
it did
a
2x4.
It
did me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's why you're doing this, right, Chris? You have a podcast because you recognize the value a podcast can bring to you and your business.
Oh,
correct?
Yes. Correct. Yes.
I'm doing a podcast because I recognize it as well. And it doesn't matter that we were born in the same decade, which is now our age, the 1960s. What matters is we're smart enough to understand that in the old days, there was a media scarcity. The only people who owned media were the ones who owned a printing press, a radio studio, or a TV studio.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Guess what? You have a printing press, a radio, and a TV studio in your smartphone right now.
Right now.
So there is zero barrier to entry for anybody to start doing this. The other thing too is social media is 100% free. Now there are paid levels for just about everything, but I'm a cheap ass rat bastard father who all my money goes to my daughters. So I pay for nothing except the $5 a month it costs me to host my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Literally everything I'm on the free account for everything. Yeah. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't like me, but guess what? I don't like him, so he doesn't need my money. Instead, I will use him as assiduously as he uses my personal data. It's a quid pro, screw you pro, you know. But that's how it works.
There's just a lot of sound bites in here, DP. So I'm.
Oh yeah. Well, believe me, I've got some opinions.
You do. You know what? I'm going to formally invite you to do a live broadcast with me. It would be on LinkedIn, Facebook. Here we go. Facebook, even Instagram, and some other ones. Would you want to do that sometime? Because I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We could take live questions and probably irritate a few people, but that's what gets people engaged.
Yeah, well, and the whole thing is, I'm not here to irritate anyone. I'm here to wake some people up.
I know what you mean, but yeah.
Yeah, and I you get it, Chris, because you're doing it.
Yeah.
But there are a whole lot of people who are north of the age of 50 who have consigned themselves to the slow elevator ride toward the heavenly acres, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing it either. I have a personal goal to live to be 100. That's one of my goals. So
well, you got to see it to be it. So if you see that as your goal, there's a maybe not the highest likelihood you'll get there, but you'll do a whole lot better than those people are like. Who are like too tired. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll get there.
But no, and the whole thing is and why, David? My name is David. Why, David, did you start doing this? Because I labored in obscurity very successfully behind the walls of agencies until it got to the point I like to call your X years. You're experienced. You're an expert at what you do. You're expensive and therefore expendable.
Ooh,
because if you don't own it, it's not yours. If you don't own the agency and your name's not on the door, they can have you gone anytime they want. And it will happen to you.
That's not a nice
feeling. Ooh. So I look at it and, I'm a creative director who's been early adopter of all the social media channels. In 2008, said to myself, you know what? I should be doing a blog. Imagine if I had been doing one blog post a week from 2008 to now, who would I be? And the answer is I'd be a lot closer to Gary Vaynerchuk than I am now.
Well,
but the old Chinese saying, what's the best time to plant a tree?
Right now.
20 years ago.
20 years ago.
And right now.
Yeah, both. Both.
Yeah, it's both 20 years ago and right now. So
EP, we're this is fascinating. We could go on for another 3 hours and not repeat anything.
Easily.
Yeah, another. I want to ask you a couple of quick questions before we wrap it up. What is your favorite movie?
Oh man, that's tough. I think I'm going to cheat and say my favorite director is David Lean, because I love Dr. Zhivago. I love Lawrence of Arabia. I love Bridge Over the River Kwai. I think he captures my desire for interesting action, passionate romance, and just incredible, stunning visuals.
Got it.
You know, so I'm going to go with David Lean.
Okay. I love the answer. If you had a time machine, the Marty McFly DeLorean or the Doctor Who TARDIS, you could go back in time and speak with somebody influential who's not with us anymore. Doesn't have to be famous or anything like that. Who might you pick to do that with?
You know, I've thought about this, and I would say William Shakespeare. Not William Shakespeare, the author, you know, the guy on a pedestal, but William Shakespeare, the working actor, because people don't know this. He was a working actor struggling in Elizabethan England. And I would love to kind of go, dude, did you really write all those plays? If so, let's talk about what it was like to be a working actor and try to get this stuff produced, because I have no doubt that you had no idea how good you were then. But my gosh, you are absolutely brilliant when it comes to manipulating the English language.
Oh, he'd love to hear that, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well,
back then, yeah.
Yeah, any writer would love to hear that, I'm sure.
No, I pronounced your name right in the beginning, but let me make sure I get it right this time. D.P. Knudten.
Knudten, that's right.
Knudten.
Swallow that diphthong. Yep.
I just get to Knudten. I want to spell it Newton. Maybe I'll write that way. Knudten. Anyway.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
It's been fascinating talking about branding and everything else. And we're going to be having you on again. And it was a great time. In the meantime, live long and prosper, as they say on Star Trek.
That's right. You've only got one first best destiny, Chris. Yours is captain of the starship, the Bonos Podcast.
Oh, thanks. Wow. I love it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.